Hello everybody, welcome to this video. It's the continuation in my series on A-Level English Literature. Everything you see in this video comes from Mr. Bruff's Guide to A-Level English Literature, available for £4.99 from mrbruff.com or amazon.co.uk as an instant download ebook. It was written by Kerry Lewis, aka Mrs. Spag, who also wrote the best-selling Mr. Bruff's Guide to Grammar. Now we're moving on from Assessment Objective 1 into Assessment Objective 2. On the legacy specification, Assessment Objective 2 requires you to demonstrate detailed critical understanding in analysing the ways in which structure, form and language shape meanings in literary texts. But if you're being taught from September 2015, Year 12 onwards, the wording has been altered to encourage you to consider more ways that meanings are shaped, and it's now analyse ways in which meanings are shaped in literary texts. Now, the additional ways in which meanings can be shaped will be discussed a little bit later, but whichever specification you're studying, AO2 assesses your ability to explore and explain a text, and these skills are called analytical methods. You are now experts on form, structure and language. However, as we saw in earlier videos, knowing the terminology isn't enough. You might, for example, choose to show how a poet takes an image and treats it in a variety of ways during a poem, or show how a novelist structures a chapter. There are lots of examples of analytical methods being demonstrated, but another analytical method is your ability to quote. Your quotations must be appropriate to the question and be used thoughtfully to support the direction of your argument. And I'm going to spend the rest of this video looking at how to quote. Now, as you're studying for an A-level in English literature, you'll probably have gained at least a B grade in your GCSE English literature, and this means that you should already have the skills to select quotations and embed them into your sentences. But this video is going to briefly revise how to quote. Firstly, a reminder that when you're quoting the exact words of a text, you need single quotation marks to distinguish the other person's words from yours. Do not use double inverted commas because these are speech marks, not quotation marks. If you're quoting short words and phrases of up to 2 full lines of a poem, let's say, you need to embed them into your sentences so that the wording of the quotation flows with the sentence. The words, your words and the words of the quotation just flow together and read beautifully as lovely sentences like this example. When Abraham Lincoln said that a person cannot escape the responsibility of tomorrow by evading it today, he meant that he did not want to avoid difficult tasks such as abolishing slavery and uniting America. Now, you can see Abraham Lincoln's words are in quotation marks, but my words are written in such a way that Abraham Lincoln's words just flow into my sentence, and that is what we mean by embedding quotations. But if the quotation is longer, then you want to separate it from the main text and indent it and leave out the quotation marks. So if you've got a big quote like this, one of the most famous openings in literature is in Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice. It is a truth universally acknowledged that a single man in possession of a good fortune must be in want of a wife. However little known the feelings or views of such a man may be on his first entering a neighbourhood, this truth is so well fixed in the minds of the surrounding families he is considered the rightful property of someone or other of their daughters. Now what you can see here is a longer quotation, so we don't need the quotation marks, we separate it from the main text and we indent it. Now let's have a look at punctuation with quotation marks, full stops. First of all, you need to remember that a full stop goes at the end of your sentence after the quotation mark. If the quotation ends in a full stop in the original text, just leave it out. Your full stop is more important. Okay, so Mr. Darcy had 10,000 a year. There's an example of that. Ellipsis, you might sometimes want to omit non-essential words from a quotation to leave them out. For example, the following sentence is a bit long. Mr. Darcy soon drew the attention of the room by his fine, tall person, handsome features, noble mien, and the report, which was in general circulation within 5 minutes after his entrance, of his having 10,000 a year. Now what we can do is we can embed the above quotation into our sentence. We can take out some of the words, replacing them with ellipsis, and it's going to look like this. When Mr. Darcy arrived at the ball, he attracted attention because of his fine tall person, handsome features, noble mien, and the report, ... ellipsis, of his having 10,000 a year. If you're not sure if your sentence with embedded quotations is grammatically correct, imagine deleting the quotation marks, and your sentence should still make perfect grammatical sense if you took the quotation marks out. That's what I'm talking about saying that the wording of the quotation just needs to flow into being part of your sentence. And this is the way I tend to do it. When I've got my quotation, I think about how to write my sentence around that quotation so it is embedded and flows nicely. A lot of people struggle with, how do I do that? You've got to start with the quotation and then write around it. Square brackets. Now, if you add your own words to a quotation, you put them in square brackets to show that they're not part of the original text. Here's an example. When Mr. Darcy arrived at the ball, he attracted the attention of the room, in other words, the people, by his fine tall person. Now, in these square brackets, I've put my own words. I've wanted to explain the quotation, but to make it clear that this is not part of the quotation, but it's my own words, I've used square brackets, and now you know what those square brackets are for. What about double quotation marks? We use double quotation marks for a quotation within a quotation. For example, the minister said to say the NHS is robust is a blatant lie. Now we're quoting the minister, and the minister is quoting another person, so it's double quotation marks. How about a colon? A colon introduces a quotation if the quotation is roughly a sentence long. In Pride and Prejudice, Mr. Bingley is Mr. Darcy's foil. Bingley was sure of being liked wherever he appeared. Darcy was continually giving offence. So because this quotation is roughly a sentence in length, we'll introduce it with a colon. So you should aim to embed short quotations into your sentences where you can, as this is a higher level skill. But you should never ever quote a sentence without introducing it first, and even worse, you should never have a sentence that is just a quotation and nothing else. Instead, you should consider introducing your quotation with some of these verbs. So you could say, the writer argues, asserts, challenges, claims, comments, concludes. You can see the list on the screen here. These are all good examples of ways to introduce a quotation, and it's important not to just always be the same as well. That's another big mistake that we want to avoid. You choose some of these off the screen. That's not, of course, an exhaustive list, but it's a useful starting point. Here are some phrases you might use according to X, as X is noted in the words of X. Whichever signal, verb or phrase you choose, check that you understand its nuances so you can use it correctly. If you're not quite sure what it means, use a different one. So hopefully this video has been useful on how to quote.